Right now, dangerous deluge, heavy rains in central Texas create more flooding as the water rises higher and moves even faster than last year's disaster there. Flood sirens that were installed worked, but one lawmaker says the state needs to fund more of them. Focusing on fraud, the Republican candidate for Texas Comptroller Don Huffines is set to become the acting comptroller. The changes he tells us he plans to make. And campaigning at the border, both James Talarico and Ken Paxton make stops in South Texas and tell voters their plans to prevent illegal immigration. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas starts now. Good Sunday morning to you and welcome to Eye on Politics. Hope you're having a great weekend. We're going to begin with the severe flooding in central Texas 1 year after the deadly tragedy there. Heavy rains in the hill country in southwest Texas caused flash flooding and evacuations. Among the areas hit include Kerrville, where the Guadalupe River rose to high levels and moved rapidly downstream. It was a nightmare for residents there and in other parts of the state, including Uvalde, which saw widespread flooding. Flood sirens installed by private companies and the state of Texas in Kerr County worked by sounding the alarm to alert residents of the dangerous flooding. We spoke with Republican State Representative Wes Verdell of Brady, whose Central Texas district includes Kerrville. He told us the state legislature needs to spend more on the flood sirens next session, and he explained why the water rose more quickly this year than last year.
One of the problems we have right now, which is most of our vegetation got swept away last year, and the water is flowing a lot faster than it did last year. And in the more downstream areas like Kerrville and Ingram and Center Point, those took a heavy toll. The water is as high potentially or even higher than it was last year right now. But I know that we have Texas Parks and Wildlife, so the game wardens and DPS, they've all brought boats in. Tatum is here with their swiftwater rescue. And so we definitely have had people that were staged already, ready to do that. And you know, we've been hearing reports here and there of people being on the roofs or stuck in their attics, and my understanding is all those people have been rescued so far.
We've seen reports that the flood sirens that were put in place did work, both those put in privately and those put in by the state. Talk to me a little bit about that and the difference that it made.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the difference that it made. I know I just received a video shortly, probably about 30 minutes ago from somebody who had put in the private warning systems, and they seem to be working fine. The sirens work. There's 3 of them. They all 3 went off. And, I'm still hesitant about the effectiveness of a siren, especially if it's middle of the night and pouring down rain. But at the same time, it's really kind of what the state wanted, and so they're working on getting more put in. But I would say that they turned on and they worked. I just haven't heard anybody from locally saying whether they heard them or not.
Now, 29 counties, I guess, they got approval, but they are still waiting. They're still in the process of getting these flood sirens. Any concerns about that in these other counties?
Yeah, I think the concern is the amount of money allotted to the sirens. And so just in Kerr County, we were talking to one of the groups that were looking at how do we get the sirens put across the county. And it was going to be around $40 million to get enough sirens based on the mandates required by the state. And the state did not fund anywhere near that amount. So I think there is a challenge on, okay, how do we put them in? How do we maintain them? And how do we afford them?
Didn't the state put in like $50 million for these?
Well, if you think about it, so let's say there's 29 counties that they're supposed to put them in. And just in Kerr County, they're estimating a cost of about $40 million. And so there's really not enough money when you spread it across all those counties.
And our lawmakers, I know you are, but are other lawmakers aware that they're going to have to put more money into this in the next?
I think so. I do think so. You know, we're going to have to go back to the legislature and look at some things that were done, especially the camp safety bill, and fix definitely some overreactions to what happened, and make sure that we have proper funding in those counties for the mandates that are placed on them.
In a few weeks, Texas will have a new acting Texas Comptroller. That's Don Huffines, who is also the Republican nominee for this job in the November election. Huffines will be sworn in August 1st, 3 months before the election. Governor Greg Abbott appointed him after the current acting comptroller, former state Senator Kelly Hancock of North Richland Hills, resigned his position effective July 31st. Huffines beat Hancock and others in the Republican primary in March. Huffines will now take on the Democratic nominee, Sarah Eckhardt, a state senator from Austin, for this open seat. The Texas Comptroller's office is now overseeing the development of the Texas Education Freedom Savings Accounts, the $1 billion taxpayer-funded program that will give money to students to attend private school. We spoke with Huffines in Dallas, and he tells us changes are on the way in the office so he can root out fraud in the state.
The Comptroller's agency is huge. It's very comprehensive and complex, and I wanted as much of a head start as I could get in the office to understand it, to understand the processes, understand the team members, and I was very fortunate the governor saw the value of having a businessman in that position.
What do you say to your Democratic opponent, Sarah Eckhardt, who said that the governor gave you a participation trophy and that you're not necessarily the winner just yet?
Well, I don't respond to my opponent, but I'll tell you this, the governor knows that I'm the best person for the job. It's simple as that.
If you're elected permanently in November for a 4-year term, what do you want to do?
Well, Doge Texas, root out fraud, waste, and abuse, like I've talked about on the campaign trail. And to consolidate the agency in itself, to consolidate other agencies.
Has the state done a good enough job rooting out fraud, in your opinion?
No, I don't think the state has. There's so many government programs, and mainly federal programs, where most states have said that's the federal job to review the program, to find out if the money's being spent correctly. And we're seeing that across the board, that's just not the case. It hasn't. People have not paid attention. The federal government's not paid attention to how the money's being spent. People have been gaming the system for decades.
And you're saying it's going to be your job to root out fraud on in federal programs that the state administers?
Absolutely. It's our income tax money. It's all of our money, and the state money. And the state level also, but also the local level. I'm going to be rooting out and investigating local governments also.
Do you have the staff for that there to do all that?
Well, we're working on that. It's a process. I'm going to be doing a lot of shifting with my team. I have over 600 auditors down there, Jack, and we're going to be increasing that staff. I'm shifting a lot of my auditors over to auditing government.
From?
Auditing businesses currently for revenue.
Should that raise a concern as well? Because you talked about fraud, you also want to make sure that companies aren't defrauding the government either, right?
Of course. Yeah, it's a real delicate balance. It really is. If you owe your tax, we want to make sure you're paying that tax. So yes, of course.
Today, on the day you and I are speaking, the Texas Comptroller's office is set to release their first numbers of how many Texas students are actually going to be taking part in the Texas Education Freedom Accounts, the taxpayer-funded accounts that allow students to attend private school. How are you going to define success?
I'm a big champion of it, and because I really believe the competition is what's going to make our government schools the best they can be. And I did get a briefing on it. And my goal is to make the program as robust as possible. But the most important thing about it, Jack, is to make sure that everyone knows about the program. And right now, that hasn't been the case.
Huffines said he wants to boost marketing for that program next year. We also spoke with Democrat Sarah Eckhardt, who opposes the taxpayer-funded school choice program, calling it a voucher scheme. We asked her about her opponent being appointed to the position 3 months before the election.
It is startling, frankly, that this close to the election, someone would be installed who actually received less votes than I did in the primary. And also, we really need to we need to respect the will of the voters here. So it's the voters who get to decide who their comptroller is, not the governor.
Does that hurt your campaign at all?
I don't think it does hurt my campaign. Just because Abbott is giving Huffines a participation trophy does not mean that that he's a winner. And I think it does give the electorate the opportunity to see who this guy actually is.
You also brought up the fact that Huffines wants to doge the state of Texas. When you hear that, what does that say to you?
Well, doging should leave a bad taste in people's mouth after our experience at the federal level. It did not root out corruption and it did not reduce cost. It created chaos in federal government and seriously curtailed the ability of the federal government to actually serve the people of the United States. And doging state government would do the same, but worse, because I believe we are 45th among all of the states in our investment in actual Texans. We spend less on Texans than almost any other state in the union. So to further doge state government, making it even less capable of responding to the needs of Texans, I think should be a concern for everyone. He's also expressed a desire to embrace AI, replacing comptroller employees with AI, and also turning the auditing function of the comptroller's office away from tax cheats and onto government itself. We already have pretty significant oversight inside Texas state government, and I'm very appreciative of that. We should have robust oversight, and the comptroller's office is absolutely part of that. But we cannot expect a comptroller who's been appointed by the governor to actually look at corruption inside state government. He's not going to bite the hand that pats him on the head and tells him he's special.
What do you want to do with the office if you are elected?
If I'm elected, when I'm elected, we will do a robust and honest audit of the voucher scheme, showing who benefits most, least, and not at all from this program. We're about to get statistics out of the comptroller's office as required by the law at the end of July, the beginning of August. It's important to take a robust look at that because it could be and probably will become a runaway subsidy, much as we've seen the runaway subsidy on the data centers.
Both Eckhardt and Huffines told me they support eliminating the state's sales tax incentives for data center developers. Coming up, the Texas Senate candidates lay out their positions on border security during campaign stops in South Texas. The important role that region will play in November when Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas comes right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to the Texas Senate race. Both Democrat James Talarico and Republican Ken Paxton campaigned for votes last week along the southern border. Both are hoping to attract voters who 2 years ago chose President Trump, who changed the Texas map by winning most of the border counties for the first time for a Republican. Both Paxton and Talarico touted their border security policies. Democratic Senate candidate James Talarico called it the Frontera Tour.
Appreciate y'all.
A 5-city, 750-mile trip along the southern border. In Texas's Big Bend, Talarico stood with a bipartisan group of elected leaders to lay out what he calls his common sense border security plan.
We need more Border Patrol agents. We need more immigration judges. We need more surveillance technology. Both parties have failed us on our border. Most Texans don't want open borders. Most Texans don't want this corrupt border wall. What we want, what we need, is common sense border security, and we need it today.
As a state representative, Talarico and other Democrats opposed various state bills to clamp down on illegal immigration. At his news conference, Terrell County's Republican Sheriff Thad Cleveland criticized the Trump administration's plan to place a 4-foot vehicular barrier in areas of the Big Bend. He endorsed Talarico's plan, but not the candidate himself. And he said he won't back Republican Ken Paxton either.
I never thought I'd be standing here running for U.S. Senate, I can tell you that.
In McAllen, Paxton held his first campaign event since beating Senator John Cornyn in the Republican primary runoff. He emphasized his record of suing the Biden administration over its border policies, which resulted in record illegal immigration, according to government statistics.
So my view on immigration is we need a secure border We need to protect our country. We need to make sure that we take care of America first. Now, I don't think my opponent, you've heard his name before, I don't think he would be filing lawsuits against Joe Biden.
Paul Perez, president of the National Border Patrol Council, endorsed Paxton. Polls show this race is neck and neck. Their campaign stops along the southern border highlight the importance of South Texas this year. I spoke with pollster and political science professor at Texas A&M's Bush School, Clifford Young, about the key role this region will play in the crucial midterm election this November.
It's critically important, obviously. I see it as a canary in the coal mine. Indeed, in 24, the critical issue was the border. Republicans and Trump took Texas, really carried Latinos much more strongly than in past races because of that issue. And so the critical question today is, what are those issues that are really weighing on Texans in general and Texans in the South? And it is affordability. Those are that more specifically making ends meet are the critical issues. Obviously, there are border concerns, but really this electoral cycle is about economics. It's about household income and making ends meet.
Democrats I spoke with think they're going to do very well with Latinos. They point to the March primary and the Latino turnout there. And do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's hard to say, obviously, at this point. But what we do know is that Latinos are voicing their frustrations around, again, affordability. It's a much more important issue than the border. The border was critical once again in 2024. Talarico and Democrats more generally have an advantage on affordability. So yes, I could see Latinos breaking more this electoral cycle for the Democrats than not.
What about immigration enforcement? I mean, we've seen a lot of controversy since ICE and the deadly shootings we saw earlier in the year, and then again now in Houston and also in Maine. So how big of a political impact will that have?
Yeah, I see the ICE events, the ICE issues, as more marginal in their effect. Things are happening, obviously, they can be negative, they can be positive. It's creating more noise and friction than anything else. What's critical when it comes to the border issues is that Texans believe that the federal government, they believe that the Trump administration has done a good job at reducing the migrant flow. That sticks in the head of all Texans, whether they're red, blue, or purple. So I believe that's much more critical in framing how Texans see things than anything specific that can happen with ICE.
Talarico has challenged Paxton to 3 televised debates. Paxton says he will debate Talarico, but the 2 campaigns will have to work it out from there. Coming up, why the race for Dallas mayor is starting more than 1 year before voters ever have to go to the polls. When Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas returns. The U.S. House has approved making daylight saving time permanent. Lawmakers passed the Sunshine Protection Act by a wide margin, and if it passes in the Senate, Texans and other Americans won't have to change their clocks twice a year any longer. Sarah Jenkins now with the brief.
If the daylight saving time bill becomes law, most of the country would stay on daylight saving time year-round, while states that already observe standard time, like Hawaii and most of Arizona, could continue to do so. Supporters say ending the clock changes would improve sleep, boost the economy, and give people more evening daylight. Critics argue that darker winter mornings could create safety concerns. While Texas lawmakers and Governor Greg Abbott support locking the clock and passed a bill to do just that in May, they have to wait on the U.S. Senate, thanks to the 60-year-old federal law that requires states to continue to observe daylight saving time. The bill now heads to the Senate, where its prospects remain uncertain. President Trump has said he would sign the measure if it reaches his desk. For The Brief, I'm Sarah Jenkins.
All right, thank you, Sarah. While Texas and the nation are focused on the all-important midterm elections this fall, one major candidate has announced he's running to become Dallas's next mayor, but the election is not until November of next year, 16 months away. Michael Hinojosa, who led Dallas ISD twice as superintendent, has filed his campaign paperwork with the city and can start raising money. He held a news conference last Tuesday in front of City Hall. Hinojosa spoke with our Steve Pickett a day earlier about his vision.
I want to grow all communities, especially the underserved. Whether it's downtown, whether it's South Dallas, whether a lot of people don't even know about Brockbank and Bachman Lake, but they need a lot of help, all communities. Central Business District is non-negotiable.
Other names of potential candidates include attorney Ben Abbott and developer and philanthropist Peter Brodsky. The city's workforce development czar, Lynn McBee, told me she's considering a run, as she did in 2019. Senior pastor Richie Butler at St. Luke United Methodist Church told me he is also considering a run for mayor. Council member and former Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Gay Donnell Willis said she too is thinking about this race, as is former council member and Mayor Pro Tem Tanel Atkins. He said he's weighing his options. Whoever wins will succeed Mayor Eric Johnson, who is in his second and final term. And don't forget, you can watch all our full interviews from today's show on our CBS Texas YouTube page. And while you're there, check out the Eye on Politics playlist and hit the subscribe button. And that's all for Eye on Politics today. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week. And from all of us here, have a great Sunday.